Okay, so question 1, okay, if the line 3x plus 3y equals 0 is perpendicular to the line ax plus y equals 0, find a. Okay, so what's basically happening is it's perpendicular to the line ak plus y. We're going to use the formula y equals mx plus c. M stands for the slope, c is the y-intercept. Okay, so if we draw a rough graph of a line as shown down here, you can see that this is the c-intercept and the slope is m. Okay, then what we can do is we can have 2 points here. Okay, so that is the c-intercept below. Now what we need to do is to use y equals mx plus c, we need to get y on its own. So what we do is we move the x over to your side and it comes minus 1x. Okay, then we get y equals minus a third. So you can imagine 3y equals minus 1x plus 0. The c value is invisible. This means that the c value is 0. This means that it goes through the origin. Okay, so you can imagine the blue line over there in the corner going through the origin. Next, what we see is we divide by 3 minus 1x over 3 plus 0. We can see that in the x position is x compared to the y equals mx plus c formula. We can see that the y is y, and we can see that m must equal minus a third, because that's the number that comes in front of the x. To get the perpendicular slope, what we need to do is we need to turn it upside down and change the sign. So what we do is we turn it upside down, change the sign, and we get 3. So the slope of the perpendicular line must be equal to 3. Now we start working on the formula for the line k by getting y on its own. Bring over ax to the other side and we get y equals minus ax plus 0. Therefore y equals mx plus c. Compared to the formula, we can see that m equals minus a. Okay, so m must equal minus 1a. Minus 1a in turn must equal 3 because we're told that it's perpendicular. Therefore a equals 3 divided by minus 1. A equals minus 3. Now, verify both lines pass through the origin. In order to do this, what we want to do is you imagine a green line and a purple line. To verify that they both pass through the origin, we need to write down the formulas of both lines. Okay? So verify also means show that. So we write down the formula of L and the formula of K as shown in the question. What we've got to do is we've got to replace x with 0 and y with 0. If the equations balance, the lines go through the origin, but if they don't balance, it doesn't go through the origin. So we can see here 0, 0, so replace x with 0 and y with 0. So equation L will therefore become 0 plus 3 times 0 equals 0, 0 equals 0. Equation y will become minus 3 times 0 plus y equals 0. Therefore, we're replacing both with 0, 0 equals 0. We can see that the origin balances both equations, therefore both lines go through the origin. Okay, hence both lines go through the origin. Okay, next thing, we got to show that minus 3, 1 is on L and 1, 3 is on K. So what we do is we write down the equation of L and K. For equation L, we replace x with minus 3 and y with 1. So we put in our numbers there. So x minus 3 plus 3 times 1 equals 0. Minus 3 plus 3 equals 0. 0 equals 0. This means that A is on the line L. Now, for equation K, what we're going to do is we're going to replace B with 1 and y with 3. We put in minus 3 times 1 plus 3 equals 0. Minus 3 plus 3 equals 0. 0 equals 0. This means that B is on the line K. Now, next thing we're doing here is going to draw out our graph. Okay, and as you can see, we're just labeling our axis at the moment. 1, 2, 3, minus 4. So we're going to draw it. So both lines L and K contain the origin. We proved that in part 2. That both of them go through the origin. Now we have one other point for each line. L goes through minus 3, 1 and K goes through 1, 3. So we're just going to draw these points on the line and we can see that that's the line L and this one here is the line K. Now ABOD it forms a square. Find D and the area of the square. So what we do is we can label the A, O and B here. The next thing we can do is we can draw a triangle going from A to O. And what we need to figure out is how does O get to A? What it does is it goes across 3 and up 1. Therefore, B has to go to D in the same way. It goes across 3 up 1. Okay? And therefore you can see that the point D will link in here, and therefore we get our square. Okay, point D. Now, next thing we gotta do is find out what is the length of the square. So to find out what the length of the square is, what we're going to do is we're going to use Pythagoras' theorem. We already have this purple triangle drawn here. This is the triangle we're going to use here, A. Okay, and then we're going to put down our lengths. So it's going to be the triangle AEO. So A to E over to O. A to E is a distance of 1 block, while E to O is a distance of 3 blocks. What we can then use is Pythagoras' theorem. So we can use x squared equals 3 squared plus 1 squared. Remember, it's the longest side squared equals the sum of the other two sides squared and added together. Therefore, we can get x squared equals 10. Therefore, x will have to equal the square root of 10, or 3.1622, or sorry, 3.7622. We'll just check that out for the square root of 10. So where we go, square root of 10. Change it, 3.1622. Okay, so next part of this question, we're asked to find the area of the square. So if you imagine here's the square here, we'll just rotate it around a little. It's root 10 long and root 10 wide. Area equals length multiplied by width, which in turn is root 10 by root 10. Root 10 by root 10 is 10 units squared. Okay. Next one. A circle S has an equation x squared plus y squared equals 25. On page 19 of your tables, you'll see this is the equation of a circle. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. HK is the center of the circle, and r is the radius. So compare this to the formula we have to the left. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to replace in x minus 0 squared, because x minus 0 squared is x squared, and y minus 0 squared is y squared, equals 25. When comparing both formulas, we can see that h is 0 and k is 0. This means that the center of the circle is 0, 0. Okay. Next thing we can do is we compare the 25 to the r squared. R squared equals 25. Put this into the calculator and we get r must be equal to 5. Now, the point P has coordinates 8, 6. Find CP. Find the length of C to P. These two vertical lines here means the length of C to P. So you're going to find out what the length is here. Okay, so you're going to go to your formula and you're going to find this distance formula for the length of PQ, the distance between 2 points, y2 minus y1 squared. So the distance is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So we're going to put in 0, 0 as x1, y1, and 8, 6 is x2, y2. So d will equal x minus 0 squared plus 6 minus 0 squared. What we can then do is we can enter all of this into the calculator. So what we get is 8 minus 0 squared, and it should be easy enough to do all in one go. Minus, now just make sure you don't go outside. You have the square root sign has to be over both of them. Okay, so 6 minus 0 squared. Okay, now I forgot the plus sign, so always make sure it's identical to the one that you've just drawn, and we get 10 as the answer there. Okay, so 10 is our answer. Okay, so the distance equals 10. Now, two tangents are drawn from P to the circle S as shown. Find the angle B and hence the angle D. So we can see P to E is a tangent because it only touches once. P to F is a tangent because it only touches once. Okay, so this is what a tangent is. Okay, so what we can do is we can label this. We know that this has to be 90 degrees. That's one of our rules, that this is 90 degrees if it's a tangent. Okay, so what happens next is we're just going to map out this triangle here, move it over. We know that this is 90 degrees. That's 5, and this here is going to be 10. Okay, because we got the distance was 10 in the last question, and this is angle B. Now we're going to write down SOHCAHTOA, and remember we got to find out which one we need to use. Okay, So 10 is the hypotenuse because it's the longest side, and because the angle B is looking directly at the number 5, 5 is the opposite. Sine B is opposite divided by hypotenuse. 5 is the hypotenuse, 10 is the opposite. Now we had to get B on its own. So what most people might think about doing is they'd say B equals 5 divided by 10 sine. But you can't move sine down on its own. So there's a special way of separating sine and B from each other. So when sine travels over the other side, what it does is it becomes sine inverse 5 over 10. So what we can do now is we can just simply put this into the calculator. Shift sine inverse 5 divided by 10. Close the bracket. And we get that it's 30 degrees. Okay, so it's 30 degrees for this. So we can see that B is 30 degrees. And if B is 30 degrees, that will make D 60 degrees because all three angles have to add up to 180. So D is 180 minus 30 minus 90, which means D is 60 degrees. Okay. So we're just going to, we can see that D there is 60 degrees. That's 5, that's 10, and that's 30 degrees there. Okay. Now, if the circle represents the Earth of radius 6,400 and P is a satellite, find the length of the arc EF that the satellite can see and that satellite can see. So this is the satellite here, and it sees E to F. Okay, so it can see E to F. So what we need to do next is we need to find out on page 8 of your tables. There's a formula on the table, and what it says is the length of the arc is the length of, it's like part of the circumference. It's from here to here is the length of the arc, okay? And it says if you're given an angle, this is what I want the formula to be. 2 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius multiplied by the angle over 360. Okay? Now I'm just going to skip through this a little. So what we can see here is that the angle, we found out that the angle was 60 degrees and 60 degrees. This makes this angle 120 degrees, okay? So what we need to do next is we need to, just going to skip over this part for 1 second. So what we realize is that it's 120 degrees, okay? So we're going to use the formula 2 pi r. So it's going to be 2 pi multiplied by r, which is 6,400, multiplied by, it's going to be 120 over 360 kilometers, because it wants the part of the Earth that the satellite can see, which is E to F. Okay? Then you're going to put that all into your calculator and figure out what it is. Okay? So you're just going to get 2 multiplied by pi, bracket 6,400, and then another bracket of 120 divided by 360. And just make sure that the brackets are in proper alignment. And there you go. That's in terms of pi, and that's in terms of decimals. So it's going to be 13,404. So just change that here. So it's actually going to be 13,404 as the answer. Okay. Now, find the length of the arc EF done that the satellite can see and the height of this satellite. Now when it's talking about the height of the satellite, it's talking about C to P. It wants me to find C to P. Okay. In the old diagram, it was 5 to 10. So what we can see is that the height is twice the radius. So if it's 6,400 now, what we can see is that the height must be twice the radius, which means the height is 2 times 6,400, which is 12,800 kilometers. Okay, next one. Just using your calculator, type in sine 50, cos 50, tan 50. Sine 50 is 0.766, cos 50 is 0.6428. Okay, which rounds off to 643. Tan 50 is 1.192. Now, when you're using a circle, there's a rule, okay? The rule is ASTC, okay? Now, what ASTC stands for is, I'm just after drawing a circle with 4 parts, or 4 quarters. The first quarter goes from 0 to 90. In this quarter, all the functions are positive. So tan 50 is positive, cos 50 is positive, and sine 50 is positive, as we can see over the left side. In the second quadrant, only sine is positive. Okay. Now, because I know that sine 230 is located in between 80 and 270, it's located in the third quadrant. Because I know it's located in the third quadrant, I know it's negative. Because I know that cos 130 is located in the second quadrant, where only sine is positive, I know that is negative as well. And where tan 310 is located in the fourth quadrant, where only cos is positive, I know that tan 310 is also negative. Now, there's a rule for each quadrant. In the second quadrant, it's what's called 180 minus the reference angle. In the third quadrant, it's 180 plus the reference angle. And in the fourth quadrant, it's 360 minus the reference angle. Now, for example, 230 degrees is located in the third quadrant, 130 is located in the second quadrant, and tan 310 is located in the fourth quadrant. 180 plus r equals 230. This means that r is equal to 50 degrees. Alright? And what this rule means is that basically sine 230 equals minus sine 50. And as you can see, this is without using a calculator, using the information above. Sine 230 is minus 0.766. Cos 130 is in the second quadrant. We use the rule 180 minus r. R must equal 50 degrees. Cos 50 degrees. So cos 130 degrees must equal minus cos 50 degrees. Therefore, it's minus 0.643. Finally, tan 310 degrees is 360 minus r is 310. R therefore must be 50 degrees. Therefore, tan 310 must equal tan 50. But because it's in the fourth quadrant, it's minus tan 50, which is minus 1.192. Okay, so that's minus 1.192. Now, if sine A is 3 over 5, A is an acute angle, find cos A and tan A in the form P over Q, where PQ is an element of n. I want you to find it as a fraction, basically, okay? So, if you imagine sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan is opposite over adjacent. We have to find out what the adjacent is. The hypotenuse is 5, the opposite is 3, and the adjacent is going to be x. We're going to use Pythagoras' theorem of 5 squared equals 3 squared plus x squared. Then we're going to find out what x is. X squared is going to be 25 minus 9. X squared will equal 16. X equals 4. This means the adjacent is 4. That's the hypotenuse, the opposite, and the adjacent. Following the rules, cos A equals adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 4 over 5. Tan A will equal opposite over adjacent, which is going to be 3 over 4. Okay, please remember that A is acute. Alright, so what we're asked to find next is we're asked to find cos 180 plus A. Okay, so what's happening here is A is acute because it's between 0 to 90 degrees. Okay, and because we're adding on an angle to 180 degrees, we automatically know it's located in the third quadrant. And in the third quadrant, cos is negative. So we know that cos 180 plus A is going to be negative, and it's going to be equal to minus cos A. And that's going to be equal to minus 4 over 5. Okay, likewise, tan 180 plus A is located in the third quadrant, but tan is positive in the third quadrant, therefore tan 180 plus A is going to equal tan A, which is going to be 3 over 4. A set of results is laid out in a group frequency table as shown below. What is the molar class? The molar class is the most common class. The most common class is 8 to 10 because it has a maximum of 8. Fill in the class in which the median appears. Well, you got to remember what the median is. It means the middle person. Okay? So you have 20 people. When you add all these together, you have 20 people. 20 is an even number. Okay? If you imagine you had 4 people, the middle 2 people are the middle. So you get the average of the middle 2. Now, in this question, the middle of 20 is you divide by 2, you get 10. So the 10th and the 11th person are the middle results. Therefore, the first 2 is 1 and 2. The next 4 is 3, 4, 5, 6. And in the group of 8 to 10, we're going to have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. We can see that 10 and 11 is located in this group. Therefore, the median appears in the group 8 to 10. Okay? Calculate the mean. In order to calculate the mean, we're going to have to use something called mid-interval values. Okay? So the mid-interval values basically means we're getting the average of the interval, or the middle of the interval. Okay? So you can see 4 plus 6, which is the bottom plus the top divided by 2 is 5. So that's how we find the middle. Okay, so this changes to 5, this will change to 7, 8 to 10 changes to 9, 10 to 12 changes to 11, and 12 to 14 changes to 13. Okay, now to calculate the mean, what we're going to get is the total marks divided by the total people. Okay, so we know the total people is 20, and now we're going to get the total marks. Okay, so we're just going to run through this very quickly. So 5 by 2 is 10, 7 by 4 is 28, 9 by 8 is 72, 11 by 5 is 55, and 13 by 1 is 13. We're going to add all of these together, and when we add all these numbers together, what we're going to get is 178. 178 divided by 20 is a mean of 8.9. The next thing it wants me to do is to find the range. The range is the top value minus the bottom value. So it's basically the highest minus the lowest. So the mid-interval of the highest minus the mid-interval of the lowest. Alright? So the highest mid-interval value was 13, and the lowest mid-interval value was 5. So what we're going to do is take the highest away from the lowest, and we get 8. So remember, the highest mid-interval value was 13, and the lowest mid-interval value was 15. Next thing we're asked to do then is to draw a histogram as shown. Okay, so what we did here was we can draw the histogram. So 2 people from 4 to 6, 4 people from 6 to 8, 8 people from 8 to 10, 5 people from 10 to 12, and 1 person from 12 to 14. Okay, now scores in the university exam are normally distributed with a mean of 70 and a standard deviation of 10. If the middle 68% obtained a C, what is the lowest mark a student can get and still get a C? What is the highest C? So the distribution basically means it's distributed normally. In the middle of the peak is the mean. Okay? To the right and the left of the mean is what we call the mean minus 1 standard deviation and the mean plus 1 standard deviation. The mean minus 1 standard deviation is a score lower than the mean. The mean plus 1 standard deviation is a score above the mean. Between these two scores will be located 68% of all the participants. This is what's called the empirical rule. Therefore, if I get the mean and I add on 1 standard deviation, which would be 60 plus 70 plus 10, which is 80. If I take away 1 standard deviation, I get 60. So in between the marks of 60 and 80 is 68% of all the participants. So that means the lowest mark you can get in getting a C is 60, and the highest mark you can get is 80%. Highest C you can get, and the lowest C you can get. Now, 5 letters in the word angle are arranged in a number of ways. How many of these arrangements begin with a vowel? Okay, so if they begin with a vowel, we have 2 choices for a vowel. That would be A and E. If we were to choose E, then we could put an L. We have 4 letters remaining. Let's say we choose N. This means we only have 3 letters remaining. Let's say we choose A. That means 2 letters remaining. And then we choose the last one, which would be 1 letter remaining. Okay? So this means that we have a choice of 2 vowels, which is 2. And then we have a choice of 4 by 3 by 2 by 1 numbers. Okay? So this means 4 by 3 by 2 by 1, and that will get us 48. This can also be written as 2 multiplied by 4 factorial, which is also 48. Okay, How many of these arrangements do the two vowels come together? Imagine that we segment the two vowels together into a box that only has two vowels in it. Okay, so these are where the two vowels are located. There's a choice in this where we have 2 multiplied by 1. This means I can use EA or AE. Okay, and that's where my 2 comes from. Now if you imagine next that we have 4 boxes and I start off with NEAGL or NAEGL. Basically what's happening is I can move this box left and right and do other rearrangements. Okay, so I could have EANGL or I could have NGEAL. So see the way I can move the EA backwards and forwards. This means I can move it into 4 possible slots. Okay, so this means that I can move this in 4 possible ways. So 4 by 3 by 2 by 1. Okay, so the answer would be the 4 by 3 by 2 by 1, but also my internal choice of 2, which will get me 48. Next one. 2 fair dice are rolled. What's the probability of getting a double? Now the probability of getting a double, if I can just put this up here. Okay, so here's my sample space here. Okay, and what we can see about the sample space here is that there's 2 1s, 2 2s, 1 1, 2 2, 3 3, 4 4, 5 5, 6 6. Now when you roll a dice, there's 6 outcomes in the first dice, 6 outcomes in the second dice. This means 36 different outcomes. There's 6 ways of getting the double, so this is going to be 6 out of 36, which is 1/6. The next one. 2 fair dice are rolled 1,872 times. How often do you expect to get a double? If I roll it 1,872 times, I expect to get a double 1/6 of a time. This is what's called expected probability. We didn't actually do it, but we're trying to calculate what we expect to get. So it's going to be, that's wrong there, it's going to be 1,872 multiplied by 6, which is going to get you 312 times. Okay, next question. Joe gives his friend Peter a fair die and asks him to roll it 8 times. He says if he gets 8 sixes, he will give him €5. The first 7 rolls give a 6 each time. What is the likelihood that the last roll is a 6 and why? So, what's happening here is, if he rolls a fair die, his chance of getting a 6 is 1/6 every time. He managed to do this 7 times. But what you're seeing is that it doesn't change the outcome. Every single time you roll a dice, it's likely to be you have a 1 in 6 chance of it being 6th. So these are what are called independent events. Okay? And when an event is independent, it means it's not affected by previous results. So the likelihood is still a 6th, as each roll of the die is, it's not meant to say has, it's meant to say as each roll of the dice is an independent event. Okay.